What do you see when you look into the night sky on a warm spring evening? Whose stars are these? Every culture has an astronomy, and tonight I invite you to journey with me to the deserts of ancient Arabia. My name is Danielle Adams, and this is Two Deserts, One Sky. The desert sky we see here in Tucson looks the same as it does in the Arabian desert because our latitude is similar. But over long periods of time, the sky wobbles a bit, so the North Star hasn't always been the North Star. Step outside and look to the north. Can you find the North Star? If we project the Earth's longitude and latitude lines into space, we can see that the North Star lies very close to the pole. However, the axis of the Earth wobbles, and if we go back in time to ancient Arabia, we can see that there was no North Star. Instead, two bright stars lay about the same distance from the pole, which was called Al-Qutb. On one side, the star we know as Polaris was called by the Arabs Al-Jadi, the goat kid. On the other side, the bright star and its neighbor were together called Al-Farqadan, the two wild cow calves. These three stars were used by camel caravan drivers to find the direction of north as they crossed the shifting sand dunes of the desert. Because these stars together rotated around the pole, some Arabs referred to the arc of stars that connects them, plus a fainter arc of stars on the other side, as Al-Fats, the protuberance, which was the mound that protruded from the lower millstone of a grinding mill and contained its vertical axis. Now let's reset our clock back to today, still looking north. The 7 stars that for us represent the Little Dipper were for the Arabs Banat Na'ash as-Sughra, the children of the smaller funeral bier. The rectangle of 4 stars were the corners of the bier, or perhaps the people who carried it, and the other 3 stars were the children who followed behind it. In our Big Dipper, the Arabs saw the children of the larger funeral bier, Banat Na'ash al-Kubra. These stars also had individual names. On the end was Al-Qa'id, the leader of the camels or horses, followed by Al-Anaq, the female goat kid. The one closest to the bier was most likely called Al-Jawn, the black camel or horse. Very close to the female goat kid is a dim star that Arabs used to test each other's eyesight. It had several names, but the most common was As-Suha, the overlooked one. People would say, "I show her the overlooked one, and she shows me the moon." Between the two biers were a couple other animals, Adikh, the male hyena, and Al-Hayya, the serpent. In front of the larger bier is a semicircle of stars that the Arabs called Al-Hawd, the watering trough. From the left corner of the trough, you can trace 3 pairs of very close stars rising high into the sky. These were the leaps of the gazelles, Qafazat Azibat. Some Arabs called them the companions, Al-Qara'in, or the little foxes, Ath-Thu'aylibat. A line of stars near the leaps represented the gazelles themselves, Azibat, and the fainter stars scattered among them were their offspring, Aulad Azibat. The leaps of the gazelles were said to be left by a gazelle who leapt away from a lion after it struck the ground with its tail. Let's turn to the south to get a better look. If you follow the path of the 3 leaps, you come to an oddly shaped star cluster that many Arabs called a sunbula, the spike of grain. Some of you may recognize it as Coma Berenices, or in Arabic, a dafira, the plaited lock of hair. But it was also called Hulbat al-Asad, the coarse tail hair of the lion. Where is the rest of the lion? In this star field, you might recognize the shape of Leo, the Greek lion. I now refer to Leo as a lion cub because the Arabian lion, Al-Asad, was enormous. Since we've already found the tail hair, let's start at the back of the lion. Below the tail hair, 4 or 5 stars mark the 2 haunches of the lion, Warikal Asad. 2 very bright stars, we call them Arcturus and Spica, were the 2 shanks of the lion, Sakal Asad. The rump of the lion, Ajaz al-Asad, was in an odd place, but hey, you can't move the stars. The bright star at the tail of Leo was the penile sheath of the lion, Qunbal Asad. The lion's mane, Azubra, started with the next 2 stars and ended at the 4 stars that mark the forehead of the lion, Jabhat al-Asad. Next came the eyes of the lion, Tarf al-Asad, and their eyelashes, al-Ash'ar. The snout of the lion ended with 2 nostrils, al-Mankhiran. Just in front of these stars is a very faint but well-known star cluster that we call the Beehive Cluster. For the Arabs, this was the tip of the nose, Natharat al-Asad, which literally means the sneeze of the lion, a scattering of faint stars sneezed out of the 2 nostrils. Beyond its nose, the lion had 2 forearms, Dhira al-Asad. One of them was called the clenched forearm, Dhira al-Maqbuda, because the paw looked closed as if it were grasping something. The other one was the extended forearm, Dhira al-Mabsuta, because its paw was open, as if it were trying to reach something with its long claws, al-Azfar. So there you have it, the mega constellation of the lion, a star grouping so large it stretched across 3/4 of the night sky. Some of the lion stars were better known in other contexts. The penile sheath of the lion was more commonly called the weather change, Asarfa. The dawn setting of the weather change brought the plants and flowers of spring. This made people happy, so it was also called Nab ad-Dahr, the dog tooth of time. People would say, the weather change is the dog tooth of time, which it shows smiling broadly. The haunches of the lion were more often called the howling dogs, al-Awat. When this star grouping rose just before sunrise, the weather was very cold and caused the dogs to howl in discomfort. The bright shanks of the lion were more famously known as the 2 sky raisers, Asimakan. When these stars were high in the sky, they appeared to be holding up the starry canopy like a post raises up the roof of a tent. The higher star was so far north that some Arabs called it Haris as-Shamal, the watchman of the north, or Haris as-Samat, the watchman of the sky. In October, you can see the watchman in the east before the sun rises, and again in the west after the sun has set on the same day. This higher sky raiser was called Asimak Rameh, the spear-bearing sky raiser, and this nearby star was its spear, Rumh. Alternatively, some called this star the banner of the sky raiser, Rayat Asimak. Some Arabs defined the spear with 2 stars. This second star on its own was also called Tabi'a Asimak, the follower of the sky raiser. The other sky raiser was called Asimak al-Azal, the unarmed sky raiser, because it didn't have a spear. Near this star, the rump of the lion became the throne of the sky raiser, Arsh Asimak. Sometimes it was called al-Ahmal, the lambs, or al-Khibat, the woolen tent. Below the forehead of the lion, this bright star was called al-Fard, the solitary one, because it has no bright stars near it, as if it were a camel who had wandered away from the others. Extending to its left is a jagged line of stars that the Arabs called Asharasif, the tied camels of a caravan. Near the tied camels is a semicircle of stars called El-Ma'alef, the manger from which the camels were eating. Together with a woolen tent, these stars depicted the campsite of a caravan as it stopped to rest while crossing the desert. I hope you have enjoyed our journey through the Arabian skies of spring. For more information about these stars, please visit onesky.arizona.edu. 2 Deserts, 1 Sky is an outreach project supported by a NASA space grant and the University of Arizona. I hope that this program has inspired in you a renewed awe of the night sky and a greater understanding of the heritage of Arab astronomy. May your skies be clear until we meet again.